It's a question that whispers in the quiet corners of our culture, a paradox that many are afraid to voice aloud. Why do so many people who have achieved immense financial success, the very pinnacle of what we're all told to strive for, still feel so profoundly empty? It's a haunting reality. Studies have shown, and my own life has confirmed, that after our basic needs are met, the correlation between income and day-to-day happiness flattens out almost completely. Yet, we continue to see the relentless pursuit of an extra zero on a net worth statement as the antidote to our anxieties. This chase, this frantic scramble for more, is the great illusion of our time. And the cost of this illusion is not measured in dollars, but in the currency of the soul, our peace, our relationships, and our very sense of self. Have you ever felt that gnawing sense that no matter what you achieve, there's always another mountain to climb, another goalpost that moves just as you approach it? This isn't a personal failing, it is the predictable outcome of a game rigged against our own fulfillment. Let me tell you about a man I once knew well. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus was the poster child for the American dream. He came from a family of modest means, and through sheer force of will and a brilliant mind for logistics, built a shipping empire from the ground up. By the time he was 50, he had it all. A sprawling estate that overlooked the Pacific, a collection of vintage cars that would make a museum curator weep, a family that was the picture of health and success. On paper, he was a titan. But when he would come to see me, not for financial advice, but for something he couldn't quite name, the facade would crumble. I remember one evening, sitting in his cavernous study, surrounded by symbols of his victory, he confessed something to me with a voice that was barely a whisper. He said, "Kalen, I feel like a ghost in my own life. I built all of this, but I'm not in it. I'm just watching it. And I am so tired." The emotional cost for Marcus was devastating. The same relentless drive that built his fortune had eroded his ability to enjoy it. His nervous system was shot. He suffered from chronic insomnia, his mind constantly churning through logistics, threats, and opportunities. His relationship with his wife was a polite but hollow arrangement, and his children knew him more as a benefactor than as a father. He was living in a state of what I call successful anxiety. He was terrified of losing what he had built, yet he derived no real joy from keeping it. He was trapped. What Marcus was experiencing is a well-documented psychological phenomenon known as the hedonic treadmill. In simple terms, our brains are exquisitely designed to adapt. The thrill of a new accomplishment, a promotion, a big sale, a new home, provides a temporary spike in happiness, a rush of dopamine. But very quickly, that becomes our new normal. The brain recalibrates, and the same old anxieties and desires resurface. The new, bigger house is just the house. The larger salary is just the salary. And so we believe the solution is to seek an even bigger stimulus, a faster run on the treadmill, convinced that the next thing will finally be the one that delivers lasting peace. But it never does. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius about this very trap 2,000 years ago. He observed that it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Marcus had hundreds of millions of dollars, yet he was impoverished in spirit because his craving for more security, more validation, more success, was insatiable. The chase itself had become his identity. So, how does this manifest in your own life? Let me ask you this. Think about the last significant goal you achieved or a major purchase you made, something you worked for, something you really wanted. Be honest with yourself. How long did the feeling of pure satisfaction last? A week? A day? An hour? Now, dig deeper. What was the feeling you were really chasing with that purchase or achievement? Was it the object itself, or were you hoping it would buy you a feeling of security, a sense of freedom, the admiration of others? When we begin to dissect the why behind our desires, we often find that we are outsourcing our internal state to external things. We are asking a car to make us feel powerful, a bank account to make us feel safe, a title to make us feel worthy. But an external object can never solve an internal problem. The emotional cost is that we spend our entire lives running this race, only to find that the finish line is a mirage, and the trophy is hollow. The real prize, true abundance, was waiting for us inside all along. Understanding the hedonic treadmill is the first step, but we must go deeper. That treadmill is powered by a hidden engine, a deeply ingrained personal belief system I call the accumulation trap, or the scarcity loop. It has a subconscious feedback cycle, where the fear of not having enough drives you to accumulate more, yet the more you accumulate, the more you have to lose, which in turn deepens the fear. It's a serpent eating its own tail, and it operates just beneath the surface of our conscious minds, dictating our most important life decisions. This isn't just a problem for the ultra-wealthy like Marcus. This trap can ensnare anyone, at any income level. The size of the cage changes, but the nature of the imprisonment is the same. The question you must ask yourself is not, how much money do I have? But rather, what is the story I tell myself about the money I have and the money I don't? I worked for a time with a brilliant woman, a corporate lawyer named Eleanor. She was by all accounts a resounding success. A partner at her firm, respected by her peers, earning an income that placed her in the top 1%. But Eleanor was living in a constant, low-grade state of terror. Her trap wasn't a desire for lavish things. Her fear was of future destitution. She'd grown up with parents who struggled after her father lost his job unexpectedly, and that childhood trauma had become the blueprint for her entire adult life. She worked 16-hour days, not to afford a penthouse, but to pour money into investment accounts, trusts, and insurance policies. She had enough saved to live comfortably for 10 lifetimes, yet she would agonize over buying a new pair of shoes or taking a much-needed vacation. Her scarcity loop sounded like this: I must work harder to save more because a catastrophe is waiting around the corner. The more she saved, the bigger the potential loss from this imaginary catastrophe became, which only reinforced her belief that she wasn't safe and needed to work even harder. She was sacrificing the one life she was guaranteed to have, the one happening right now, for the sake of protecting herself from a future that existed only in her mind. From a scientific perspective, what Eleanor was experiencing is the power of neural pathways. When we repeat a thought or behavior, our brain cells neurons that fire together, wire together. An occasional thought like "I'm worried about money" is a small trail in the woods. But a thought pattern repeated daily for 30 years, "I'm not safe, I will never have enough," carves a superhighway in the brain. Your brain's reticular activating system, the filter that decides what you pay attention to, then begins to actively seek out evidence to support this core belief. It will magnify news of market downturns, ignore stories of resilience, and interpret any setback as proof that the wolf is at the door. You literally become blind to evidence of your own abundance. This is the essence of the Hermetic principle: as within, so without. If your inner world, your neural wiring, is fundamentally based on a paradigm of lack, your external reality will be perceived through that lens. The money in the bank is just data. The feeling of poverty or prosperity is generated entirely from within. Eleanor had a billionaire's balance sheet and a pauper's mindset. So how do you discover your own scarcity loop? I want you to try a simple but profound exercise. I call it the 5 whys of financial fear. First, identify a specific recurring anxiety you have about money. For Eleanor, it was, "I'm terrified I'll lose everything and end up destitute." That's the first statement. Now, ask why. Why are you afraid of that? Eleanor's answer was, "Because I would be a failure and a burden on my family." That's the second why. Okay, but why are you afraid of being a failure and a burden? Her answer, after a long pause, was, "Because then they wouldn't love or respect me." The third why. Let's go deeper. Why do you fear losing their love and respect? Because being alone and unloved is the most terrifying thing I can imagine. The fourth why. And finally, why is that so terrifying? Because, she said, with tears in her eyes, it would mean that my entire life of hard work had no meaning. The fifth why. Do you see? Her frantic, lifelong accumulation of wealth had almost nothing to do with money. It was a desperate attempt to feel worthy of love and to build a life of meaning. The money was just the raw material she was using for a project of the soul. Your turn. What is your financial fear? Ask yourself why, 5 times. Go past the surface-level answers and find the raw nerve. That is the beginning of freeing yourself from the trap. Once you have journeyed through the 5 whys and uncovered the raw, emotional driver beneath your financial fears, a critical juncture is reached. You can see the blueprint of your trap. The temptation at this point is to simply try and fight the old thoughts with new ones, to use brute force and positive affirmations. But this is like trying to yell over a hurricane. The scarcity loop is not just a mental habit, it is an emotional and energetic state of being. To truly dismantle it, you must change your fundamental frequency. You must shift your energetic signature. Ancient wisdom traditions have long taught that the universe is not made of static things, but of vibrating energy. The Hermetic axiom, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, is a profound truth. Your thoughts, and more importantly, the feelings behind those thoughts, are vibrations that you are constantly broadcasting. And the universe, in its impersonal wisdom, simply matches the frequency you send out. I once mentored a young man named James, a brilliant software developer with an idea that had the potential to revolutionize an entire industry. But he was struggling. He had been pitching his startup to venture capitalists for over a year with no success. He would come to me exhausted and demoralized. When I watched him practice his pitch, the problem was immediately clear. His business plan was sound, his technology was elegant, but he was radiating an energy of pure desperation. His posture was slightly hunched, his voice was tight, and his eyes pleaded. He wasn't offering an opportunity, he was begging for a lifeline. His energetic signature screamed, "I need you to save me." And that frequency of neediness, of lack, is repellent to the frequency of confident investment and abundance. Investors might not have known it consciously, but on a primal level, they felt his fear, and it made them back away. Our work together had nothing to do with his slide deck. I instructed him to stop pitching for 1 month. Instead, I gave him a new project, to cultivate the feeling of success before it happened. I had him start every day with a visualization practice, not of getting the check, but of the feeling of relief, pride, and excitement he would have after a successful meeting. I had him spend time helping other, younger programmers, shifting his focus from what he could get to what he could give. We worked on his posture, his breathing, on speaking from his diaphragm with a voice of calm certainty. He was, in effect, changing his tune. He was learning to broadcast the frequency of a successful, confident founder, not a desperate one. When he went back to pitching a month later, he told me it was like night and day. He said, "Kalen, it was strange. I was less attached to the outcome, and they were more interested than ever." He secured his first round of funding within 2 weeks. He didn't change his business, he changed his being. He tuned his radio to the station he wanted to listen to. This brings us to a powerfully practical application of these esoteric ideas. I want you to begin a daily practice I call the abundance attunement. It is simple, costs nothing, and will fundamentally shift your energetic field if you commit to it. It has 2 parts. The first is a morning gratitude scan. Before you even get out of bed, before the anxieties of the day have a chance to grip you, close your eyes and scan your immediate reality for things to be grateful for. Start small. The warmth of your blankets, the solidness of the bed beneath you, the fact that you are breathing without effort, the quiet of the early morning. Feel the genuine emotion of gratitude for these simple, present moment gifts. The goal is to intentionally generate the feeling of abundance, of having enough, before you even start your day. This sets your energetic tone. The second part is a generosity microdose. Every single day, I want you to consciously give something away with no expectation of anything in return. This is crucial for breaking the hoarding instinct of the scarcity loop. It could be a genuine compliment to a colleague. It could be letting someone go ahead of you in traffic. It could be sharing a piece of knowledge you have, or giving 5 minutes of your undivided, loving attention to your partner. This small act sends a powerful signal to your subconscious mind. I have more than enough. I have enough to spare. It shifts you from being a closed fist, clinging to what you have, to being an open hand, participating in the universal flow of giving and receiving. What physical sensation arises when you imagine doing this? Is it fear, or is it a sense of quiet joy? That sensation tells you everything you need to know about your current energetic signature. Once you begin to consciously manage your energetic signature, tuning yourself to gratitude and abundance, you have prepared the soil. But now, you must plant the seeds. It is not enough to simply feel abundant. You must direct that abundance in a way that aligns with your deepest, most authentic self. This is the final and most crucial step. The alchemical marriage of your money and your soul's purpose. Ancient alchemists sought to turn lead into gold. For us, the lead is a relationship with money based on fear, accumulation, and ego. The gold is a relationship with money based on purpose, flow, and the expression of our core values. This is where wealth ceases to be a number and becomes a living extension of who you are. This is where you stop serving your money, and your money begins to serve you, and through you, the world. Let's return to the story of Eleanor, the lawyer trapped in her scarcity loop. After she unearthed that her core fear was of living a meaningless life and being unworthy of love, our work shifted entirely. We stopped talking about asset allocation and started talking about her legacy. I asked her, Eleanor, if fear were not a factor, what would you do with your resources to create a life of profound meaning? It took her weeks to answer. She had spent so long in defense mode that she had forgotten how to dream. Eventually, she remembered the poverty of her own childhood and the immense struggle it was to get through law school. A new idea, a spark of purpose, began to form. With a small fraction of the wealth she had been hoarding, she started a foundation that provided full scholarships to underprivileged students from her home state who wanted to become lawyers. I saw her a year after she awarded the first scholarship. The change was miraculous. The pinched, anxious lines on her face had softened. The constant tension in her shoulders was gone. She spoke not of market fluctuations, but of the brilliant young woman she was mentoring, a young woman who reminded Eleanor of herself. She had found a purpose larger than her own fear. The joy she derived from this act of directed generosity was something her vast fortune, when it was just sitting in accounts, had never been able to provide. She was no longer just accumulating wealth, she was transmuting it into opportunity, into hope, into meaning. She had performed the great alchemy. She realized her fear of being unloved and meaningless was the very thing that led her to the work that made her feel deeply loved by her community and gave her life an undeniable meaning. The poison had become the antidote. This transformation is beautifully explained by the concept of eudaimonic happiness. Modern psychology often focuses on hedonic happiness, the fleeting pleasure from a good meal or a new purchase. But the ancient Greeks, particularly Aristotle, spoke of eudaimonia. It's often translated as happiness, but it's closer to human flourishing. It is the profound sense of well-being that arises from living a life of virtue, purpose, and meaning, from living in alignment with your highest self. Money can buy hedonistic pleasure, but it can never, on its own, buy eudaimonia. Eudaimonia must be built consciously by aligning your actions, including your financial actions, with your core values. So, let's make this intensely practical. I want you to perform what I call a purposeful wealth audit. First, take out a piece of paper and write down what you believe are your 3 to 5 core values. Not what you think they should be, but what they truly are. Is it freedom, community, creativity, learning, security, health? Be brutally honest. Now for the second step, the moment of truth. Pull up your last month's bank and credit card statements. Go through every significant expenditure, and next to each one, write down which of your core values it supported. The results may shock you. You may find that you say you value health, but a huge portion of your money went to things that undermine it. You may say you value community, but you haven't spent a dime hosting friends or supporting local groups. This audit reveals the gap between your stated self and your actual self. The final step is to create a value-driven spending plan. This is not a restrictive budget. It is a creative document. You proactively allocate a portion of your resources towards your values. If you value learning, budget for a course or a book every month. If you value freedom, budget for your travel fund or your quit your job fund. By doing this, every dollar you spend becomes an affirmation of who you are and what you stand for. It transforms the mundane act of spending money into a sacred act of building a life that is truly, authentically yours. What would your life look like if every financial decision you made was a vote for the person you most want to be?